Can Texas A&M bounce back in 2023 under Jimbo Fisher? This was a team that was very disappointing last year and a team that has higher expectations than a 5-7 finish. We're going to take a look at the personnel that could get them back on track, as well as the schedule that they have this year and what Jimbo Fisher needs to do himself and his staff and this team in order to get back on track. Now, I'll start with the personnel here because this is a big key. Now, we'll talk about Jimbo and what he needs to do a little bit later, but when you look at the talent on this team, there is no reason why Texas A&M cannot compete for an SEC championship talent-wise. Now, execution is a different story, but this is a team that can compete. They have the talent to compete with the Alabamas and the Georgias. But again, it's not just about talent. Georgia and Alabama have talent too. They found ways to execute. Texas A&M has to find a way to execute. Now, specifically on offense, this is a group that I think could be very good. This you've seen the explosive potential with this offense in the last couple of years. Now, last year, when you finally get Connor Wegman in at quarterback, that was the big difference. Now, he was a freshman. He did take some time to learn things, but he didn't throw an interception last year, even in limited time. He looked very comfortable at times. He made some big time throws. And yeah, he looked shy at times and he looked very unsure at times too. But this is a guy who I think should be the starter. I don't think the Max Johnson experiment needs to happen. I think Connor Wegman is the future of this team, someone who I believe will be a good quarterback in the SEC, one of the best maybe down the road. And you look at the talent that is coming back around him, there's a lot to like too, especially at wide receiver. Now, replacing some of the guys like Devin Achane at running back, that's going to be a question. But again, with the recruiting that this staff has done, there's really no questions about how good they can be. When you look at who Weigman gets to throw to, you look at Evan Stewart, absolute stud. I think he is going to have a huge season for Texas A&M. Moose Muhammad is another guy who could have a breakout season. You're looking at two guys that can eclipse 1,000 yards if they can get everything on track. Then you get Anita Smith decided to return as well. That's a great trio for any team, and Texas A&M has the ability to make things happen. Now, this is where Jimbo comes in. You have this amount of talent on offense, especially in the passing game. You have to adapt to the times. Gone are the days where you can just line up under center, want to run this pro style offense that doesn't get you anywhere. It's good when you have guys that are going to absolutely dominate, but when everybody else has kind of caught up in the talent pool, you have to find ways to adapt. Now, it would be a shame to continue running the system they ran last year with this talent. This is a team that needs to spread the ball out. They need to go up tempo. They have a ton of talent to be able to be extremely explosive. And there's no way that you're going to limit that because you're stubborn. I understand if you want to keep calling the plays, but you have to change your system. This is an offense with too much talent to be wasted. And it's really frustrating when you watch some of these coaches get stuck in their ways and not adapt to the times. I mean, if Nick Saban is good enough to change with the times, if Kirby Smart can change with the times, why do you think that you're better than them when they're winning national championships and you're not anymore? That is the biggest thing for me is honestly not much needs to change for Texas A&M. They just need some philosophy changes and they should be just fine with the recruiting that they're doing, especially on offense. There's no reason why they can't be one of the better offenses in college football. Now, when you flip over to the defensive side of the ball, it's more of the same. You have a ton of talent, and especially in the trenches, I think Texas A&M is going to be an absolute nightmare to block this year. I think that Shamar Turner, Fadil Diggs, and McKinley Jackson, you have guys that are going to be a problem, and you have guys that are going to make plays. Behind them, you have a couple linebackers and Edrin Cooper, Chris Russell that are going to be really good as well. And the secondary, despite losing a few key pieces, returns Damani Richardson. You get Tyree Shevel back. You get Tony Grimes in the transfer portal. That was a huge get for Texas A&M. This is a defense that is loaded once again. Again, it really there's no reason why this team shouldn't be at a minimum better than they were last year. This is a team that should be really good because of the talent they have returning. And again, yes, you have to get that talent to play, but there's no reason why Texas A&M shouldn't make a bowl game at a minimum. Like 6-6 would still be a disappointment. You have to find a way to get this talent to compete. You have to get it, find a way to get this talent in position to make plays because they're going to do things, but it's up to the coaches to elevate their game even more. with the talent. Again, you look at this offense and this defense. I think this is one of the more talented teams in college football. Now, whether or not the results, the wins and the losses reflect that remains to be seen, but there's no excuses for this team in 2023. Same thing can be said with this schedule. Now, there are certain games that obviously are tough, but when you're in the SEC, you know you're going to have a tough schedule. It's the SEC. It's really all you need to say. You're going to play someone that's very, very good, someone that's going to compete for a national championship, and you have to find a way to beat them. Now, Texas A&M can compete with the best teams in the SEC. They can. There is no reason why they shouldn't be able to. It's just a matter of putting everything into action and finding ways to compete. The non-conference schedule is not super challenging, especially New Mexico and UL Monroe. At Miami is a tricky one. That is going to be a good measuring stick for Texas A&M this year. That is going to tell us a lot about where this program is, because last year it was also a measuring stick, and we saw an offense that was very outdated, very slow, and a defense that kept Miami in check as well, but it was just kind of a boring football game. If Jimbo Fisher finds a way to take a step forward in his coaching, in his play calling, in his team's development, they're looking at a very talented team, a very good team in 2023. Now we go to conference play. And again, nothing really surprising in the SEC. You're going to have a ton of tough competition. Now, this first 4 game stretch is pretty challenging. Auburn at home isn't an easy game, although Auburn needs some time to get things figured out under Hugh Freeze. Then you play Arkansas at a neutral site. That's always going to be tough with KJ Jefferson returning. That gives this defense something to think about. A home game against Alabama is a huge game for this team. If they're undefeated, which I think that they definitely can be undefeated going into that game, that's huge. It's a great, I have great, another great measuring stick to see how far they've come or how far they need to go to get to Alabama or to get some of these best teams. Then you go to Tennessee. Having Alabama and Tennessee back to back, not ideal. Not an ideal 2 game schedule. And you can look at the Auburn and Arkansas game before that. Not great. But again, SEC, you understand that. South Carolina, depending on how good they are at the beginning of the year. Now, last year and the year before, they came on strong towards the end of the year. I don't really know what South Carolina is going to be. Probably a team that could maybe compete for that second spot in the East, but we need to see a few things first. At Ole Miss is going to be dangerous too. Ole Miss is extremely talented. That offense is going to be a problem. Their defense also has plenty of talent, but again, the talent level favors Texas A&M in that game as well. Mississippi State at home, probably going to be a win for Texas A&M. Mississippi State is going through a culture change, going through an identity change almost in a way, and I don't think it's going to favor them right away with what they're trying to do, so it might take some time there. The bye week that is the FCS SEC schedule is still ridiculous, and then a road game against LSU to end the year is going to be tough. Now, you find ways to beat Alabama and LSU, you're playing probably Georgia or Tennessee in the SEC championship game. And there's no reason why Texas A&M can't be there. There's no reason why they shouldn't be there, honestly, with the talent that they have. It just comes down to making that talent better and finding ways to produce on the field. Jimbo Fisher honestly doesn't have any excuses this year. This is one of his more talented teams, and you have to find a ways to make them really, really good. And they're going to be extremely talented. They have a ton of extremely exciting abilities, explosive playmaking abilities. You have to find ways to put them in positions to win football games. And they haven't done that yet at Texas A&M. And it's been frustrating, but I think this year is the year that we see things turn in the right direction. It just comes down to, is Jimbo Fisher still going to be stubborn, or is he going to find a way to adapt with the times and give his kids the best chance to win football games?